This is a breakup show. They are very painful. And when we go through a breakup, when our relationship is ending, we all go through some specific stages. What are those specific stages? In today's video, we will talk about this. Assalamu alaikum ji, I am Dr. Tahira Rubab. Along with being a specialist, I am a relationship therapist and a sex therapist. In these sessions, I look at and deal with the issues that arise between husband and wife or between family members in the household. As I mentioned, these happen because of breakups. That is, when a relationship ends, it's not something easy where we can just say, that's it. You said, from today we are separated from each other. This relationship is over. We can't carry on this relationship. You said it, I accepted it, and everything ended. It's just gone this way. But it never happens like that at all. In fact, the end of a relationship is always, always, always very painful. Maybe there are only a few rare people who don't feel this pain, or they accept it immediately. Yes, in some relationships it does happen that we feel like we've become unburdened. There was the weight of this relationship on our shoulders, which has now been lifted. But even in that relationship, you definitely feel that when your connection with someone ends, you still go through a certain kind of pain. So for people, ending a relationship or breaking a bond is not an easy thing. It takes people years and years to accept that their relationship, even if it's not working, is over. To move on from this relationship, the relationship itself needs to end. So normally the stage we go through during a breakup. When we start to feel this way, whenever we start to feel that maybe this relationship can't go on any longer or that it needs to end at someone's decision, there are 5 stages we go through from this point, and eventually we reach clarity and acceptance. And then we decide that, okay, that's it. Now this relationship is coming to an end. So then to end it, we have to go through 5 stages. The very first stage among them is confusion. We all fall prey to confusion. We get confused, we get troubled, meaning we don't really understand what we should do. What exactly should we do to keep this relationship going? What are the things we can try? And we get confused about whether this relationship is really coming to an end or if our partner is giving us some signals. They're telling us things like they don't feel the same way anymore, things aren't like they used to be, the relationship isn't what it was. So what does that mean? Why are these kinds of things happening? We all try to understand if there's something in our own behavior that's causing our partner to act this way. They're thinking this way or feeling like this, and they've started saying things like this. Or maybe there's actually been some change in our relationship and you're trying your best to understand what's really happening, what's going on. Because we just can't figure out that sometimes the other person is completely fine with you, since they're also confused about what you actually want. Do you want to continue this relationship or do you not want to continue it? Because when you decide to leave, a lot of other things start to bother you. But when you decide to keep it going, then the relationship itself isn't really working. So this confusion is happening on both sides. But out of the two, there's always one person who's very clear, and that's the one who has already decided to get out of the relationship and doesn't want it anymore. So generally, it has been observed that people tend to fall prey to this confusion, and when they do, their communication suffers. Conversations between them turn into big arguments full of sarcasm and taunt. More attention is given to the negative aspects of the relationship or the things that couples have fought over rather than focusing on the good times. Because of this, a person ends up becoming isolated at the next stage. That is, they start to stay alone, and by being alone, they try to think things through, hoping to figure something out. And the reason they go into isolation, the reason they separate themselves and become lonely, is also because they want to give the other person some time, so that the other person can reflect a little on their own attitude, where exactly they are going wrong in damaging this relationship, how much we need to improve things, and in what ways we can make things better and improve them. So isolation is actually the second stage of a breakup, where we see that for days there is no messaging, for days there is no conversation with each other, for days you don't respond to each other. Even though you live in the same room, you can't connect with each other. So by going into isolation, you actually evaluate yourself, you look at yourself separately, and you also consider whether the other person can realize where exactly they are making mistakes, what mistakes are happening, and how those mistakes can be resolved. The third thing is when you are sitting alone and you feel like you still don't understand anything because you were already confused and now you've separated yourself as well. So as a result, since you keep talking to yourself over and over, you end up becoming frustrated. I want things to get better. But the other person also needs to give this a chance to sit down and talk about it. Only then can things actually improve. Otherwise, it's very difficult for things to get better, because if one party wants the relationship to continue and the other party doesn't, and they don't contribute or play a positive enough role in making the relationship work, if they don't play as positive a part as they should to keep the relationship going, then improvement is hard. So a single person alone can never save or sustain a relationship, and ultimately, even if the relationship doesn't end on paper or through a breakup, it can still be broken in spirit. And when frustration has built up to such an extent, people usually start getting angry. This anger starts to become overwhelming. What is happening? Why is it happening? Why is it happening to me? What have I done that all these things have started happening? And if this is happening, then it's not just my fault, is it? We start to feel that the other person is also at fault. These kinds of feelings begin to arise, with anger becoming especially prominent at this stage. Because we can't understand what's happening, we've become isolated, and the connection we had through conversation has ended. It becomes very difficult for us to figure things out with the other person. And then we get so troubled, stressed, and frustrated that anger starts to take over, and blaming becomes much more frequent. We start putting more blame on the other person, and in our own minds, we begin to create stories and narratives. The fourth stage of a breakup is exploration. Now, at this stage, your frustration starts to subside a little, and you think, all right, let's see what comes out of this. We start to explore where the real root of the problem lies, how much of it is each person's fault. We try to figure out whether there is any solution to the issues that have come up in the relationship or not. We examine what role I might have played in taking things to the point where a breakup or ending the relationship became necessary, and what role the other person might have had, both in making things better or in ending them. That is, you start to look at things from the perspective of possible exploration, and then you even begin to explore whether this relationship, which has started to reach its end, has really come to this stage. Is it even possible for it to work out or not? Meaning, is there even a possibility that if we want to work things out, it could actually work out or not? We start to find out about all these things. And when we finally gather all the information about it, then the last stage comes to our mind, which is the stage of clarity. At this stage, we become completely clear. The picture in our mind becomes absolutely clear that basically now this relationship cannot survive, it cannot continue, because there are so many knots in it that remain unresolved. There is a time for everything to be resolved, and when that time passes, then we see that those things no longer work the way they should. And ultimately, after that time has passed, you start thinking about how to repair the damages, the losses you suffered, whether they were because of your own actions or because of your partner. But by then, the game has already slipped out of your hands. And then when we gain clarity and realize that the other person was never really invested, it was always me who was keeping this relationship going, then we ultimately reach a decision where we decide, all right, now we have to separate from each other. Because it's not just one person's job, not just one person's responsibility to keep a relationship going. A relationship can only be maintained by two people. The very meaning of a relationship is the interaction and communication between two people. Only then can a relationship be built. A one-way relationship never survives. It's always one-sided, and the other person has nothing to do with it. So at the point of clarity, people decide, they make the decision that this relationship will end, or has already ended, or needs to end, whatever stage it may be at. Whenever relationships end, it's very painful. It breaks a person from the inside, leads them into self-doubt, makes them question whether they did the right thing, whether they could have done things better, or if things would have been different if they had acted differently. A lot of such thoughts start to arise. But ultimately, a person cannot keep a toxic relationship or an unrequited relationship going for too long unless both people want to make it work. Unless both people own that relationship, unless both are willing to put in the effort, that relationship can never last. I hope that the stages I have shared with you will help you evaluate yourself. If, God forbid, you are facing a breakup or going through one, the most important thing at your stage is acceptance, because you cannot force anyone to be a part of your life. It's a choice, a desire, a will. If someone wants to be a part of your life happily and willingly, they are welcome. And if someone does not want to be, then let them go, because we never stop those who want to leave, nor do we close the door to those who want to come in. This is how the world works. Everyone who comes into your life takes their share and then moves on. In the same way, when someone's part in your life is over, they have to leave. How much pain you go through or how much pain they go through is another matter, but once you accept that they have to go, then you let them go. Take care of yourself. We'll meet again in a new video with something new. Until then, take care.